Good evening. It's your boy Terrell coming at you at the end of a long, productive day. Game of Thrones, Season 7, Episode 3. Normally I do this in the morning, but today we're going to go for the evening and doing this. Episode 3, a lot happening. Really around the meeting between Jon and Daenerys. That meeting will probably shape the next, coming episodes. Daenerys, she really sought to assert her authority, her power in that meeting. That meeting was far different from the meeting she had with Yara. And my thought is that meeting was different, large part because she saw what lived in Yara as far as wanting to rule the Iron Islands, both of them being women, and wanting to change kind of how things were going, in governing. And I think with Jon, she really, there was really no connection there, and it just sort of, went off the rails. And, the idea that he's being called a king by a group of people, and he comes with a certain authority, a certain gravitas, she sort of had to knock that down. You see that at the outset of the meeting, flying the dragons over his head, a lot of the psychological ploys to kind of, assert power, the dragons over the head, sitting up high from the throne, meeting him on the beach with, her entourage and taking the weapons, that sort of thing. So it's gonna be interesting to see how, they ever come together. I think Tyrion, he made some of the right moves. It's what they call in diplomacy a confidence building measure, where you do incremental steps to bring both sides together. You get people to agree on small yeses and to build up to the big yes. So, agreeing to mine the dragon glass was huge. It was kind of that small yes. And eventually, I think, Daenerys asked the key question. She's worrying about what Davos was talking about taking the knife to the heart and coming back, what that really meant. And I think once she hears that story, she might connect it to her story of being unburnt and, coming back from the dead, so to speak, for her people. So maybe that's the element she needs to kind of give him kind of the autonomy in his own area. And, they definitely will need each other in, the battles to come. But yeah, to giving him the autonomy in his own area, I think she'll probably have to see that because she saw what lived in Yara, being a woman, being one to change the wheel. And, Jon coming back from the dead, it may spark something where she sees what lives in him. It's another thing in conflict resolutions where when you're in an impasse, you have to ask what lives in the other person to break the impasse. And lots of impasses, they stay that way when people are trying to work through, bad things where you no longer see what lives in the other person. It's like, fuck them, at that point. But I don't think they're quite at that point yet. But she will need him because, now Jaime pulling that move where, Casterly Rock was supposed to be under siege. He sort of, took the resources from there and went to Highgarden and cut them off from their food supply. So now she's going to be in a position where she's going to have an army, in a forward position in the theater of war and not being able to supply this army. They're going to overrun their supply lines. And, it's that point of a war. It's that point of when you're going for a goal where it's longer to go back to the beginning than to finish to the end. It's called a point of no return. It's when you're bought in. It's when, your chips are at the center of the table. When you want what you want, you're going for it. So she's kind of almost at that tipping point where she's going to have to put, kind of her shoulders, out there. And, chips toward the middle of the table, past the point of no return. She's probably going to need the North to come in from the King Forest. And that's going to be Jon's kind of a bargaining chip because, Cersei, she's not really looking at the North, coming down there. So he's probably going to have the deal is going to look like a power sharing agreement probably, where they may have to split off some of the Knights of the Vale troops and some of the troops that are near the Riverlands because, I remember the Freys were knocked out of it to go take King's Landing. And then maybe we have to split off another contingent of his army to go north and fight the White Walkers. And that's how a power sharing agreement is probably going to have to look in that situation. But it's great that Jaime pulled that one move that Robb Stark pulled on him. I mean, he learned from his past. It probably getting her name wrong, the older woman from the Tyrell family. Wow, that move she pulled at the end where she's like, fuck it, I'm going down, I'm dying. And then she tells him that, yeah, she killed Joffrey. It's the old, yeah, I'm going down, but yeah, I'm going to take a patch of your ass with me type of thing. It's pretty cool the way she went with it, And, right now, Daenerys, she's in a weakened, vulnerable position, losing ships and, being outmaneuvered. and she's getting to get outmaneuvered in large measure because she doesn't really know the culture and the land. And I think Tyrion is kind of steering her toward that. And that'll probably steer her into kind of a power sharing agreement with Jon. I see that, possibly happen. It's tough to keep up with Game of Thrones and where they might go with things, but that's where it's shaping out right now. The Iron Bank, lacing Cersei with more money. She made her too big to fail argument, and right now she's looking good, and it does look too big to fail. But hey, stay tuned. Should be good. The next episode of Game of Thrones, I'm going to call it an evening, well, for now on this one, and then keep going out. But have a good one all. Later.